I feel even more sorry for young people than I used to, in the sense of like from a school leaving age, because I just think there'll be a big bunch of them that are lost every time they get to the end of the GCSEs, and they're just like, okay, I'm not meant to be anywhere. An 18-year-old can come here and after like 12 weeks, they can be on 35 bags a year, but they don't know it.
Do you know when I knew that I was old was when I'd said to somebody, I said, "Oh, I'll get your number, I'll give you a call," and they went, "Just add me on Snapchat." You know?
The younger generation now, like that are coming through into the sort of working, but they don't want to even pick up a phone.
Because this is the thing that angers me is you have got that many subjects now that you can go to uni and physically learn. Like,
didn't someone say there was? I remember reading something. There's a degree on like Taylor Swift or something. You could do that. I swear to God, I mean, what?
You've got to make people aware that, okay, if you're an apprentice, you might not be earning great for a couple of years, and then after that, you might not be on as much as your mate who's in a warehouse. But give it time, you're going to be on significantly more. You've got to look at the long game.
So we're here on a Trade Legends podcast special, talking about the trade shortage problem within the trades industry. And I'm very happy to be joined by a lovely guest from On The Tools, Lee, one of the original founders.
I am indeed.
And Jake and Ben from the Scolmore group. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So we're going to try and dig in and try and understand what to do with a pretty big problem, I think, in the trade industry, and ideas and stuff around how it could be improved. So who wants to go first, and who wants to kick the ball down the road and see where we end up with it?
Who's chasing it?
I'm going to start by saying you can't. And I'll just leave it at that for a minute.
Right, we're done.
shortest Trade Legends podcast ever.
I know, yeah.
I personally think the problem starts with school, with education, with awareness around the subject. For me especially, I mean, it's a long time ago now since I left school. I had hair then, but back then, trades weren't talked about in school. I remember day one in high school, every single teacher on orientation said to us, right, what you need to do is get your A-levels, get a degree, go and do something, like become a teacher or whatever. Trades was never mentioned. It was only ever mentioned for the unacademic kids, the thick kids as they'd call it, or the naughty kids, which is wrong.
Yeah. I mean, when I went to school, we had a careers fair. I don't know about you guys, but we got the careers fair, and the only thing I got sort of instructed to do, because again, I wasn't dumb, but I wasn't particularly academic, I was more sporty, was to go into the army. And I feel like schools potentially need to have what can be categorised as your academic side, but also your sort of more conventional, hands-on DT, that type of thing, running alongside the two, so you can come out with either your GCSEs or you can come out with the trade. And I feel like there's not a mix of that, or there's no sort of mention of that. But even the trade colleges then, when you leave school, aren't really geared up to support you going into a trade, because they can't get people to come and teach because the wage is less than you could earn on the tools. So how do you sort that?
The whole school story you told then, it's still happening now, and that's the challenge. Is that it's like a big bulk of the industry isn't choosing to go into it, and hasn't for decades. They fell into it. Like Ad, we were talking about Ad earlier, right? So the other half of On The Tools is Adam, who was in the trade. I wasn't. I'm like the geek, and he was in the trade, and he bang it together, and we ended up On The Tools. And he always talks about it. He fell into it. He just got told that he was thick, and that
he fell in, and then he fell out.
He fell in, he fell out. Yeah, he fell and climbed out. But he and he went and took a public service course. That was always the thing. Like, you go and do public service in college, which is essentially like, I don't even know if they run them anymore, and they're even named that, but it was like your first step into either getting into the army or the police or wherever it might be. And it's that, isn't it? It's that message. And I think this is where we've got a massive problem with younger people as well, is that when they do go into the trade, and this is why we've got such a knock-on effect with like bad, ill mental health and the suicide rate increasing, is that they fall into it, and before they've even started, they've been told they're shit and that they've failed. And like, how is that as a young person that's now got, like when we, you look younger than all of us. I don't know what I'm like.
32.
30, so not buzzing. I thought you were going to be like in
your
20s.
Am I the oldest one here?
Yeah, 41. 41. You are.
The granddad of the group.
But like that, none of us had social media when we was at school, right? And I think so now you've got these young people leaving school. All they've got to look at around them is other people doing amazing on social, even though, that's not true either. Yeah. And then they're being told by the people, whether they feel like they look up to them or not. You do look up to teachers. You can look back and be like, yeah, okay, they're an authority figure at least. And they're being told that they're failed. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, you'll end up in a trade. That's like a line that we did like a big campaign on it this year and spoke to loads of thousands of tradespeople about their experience of how they got into it, their school, what's happening now to younger people. And that message is still being driven by schools. And that, I think it's shocking, And I think the other part of it as well is the school leaving age has crippled our industry, because we weren't set up years ago. Apprenticeships were like a good thing through our industry, but they've kind of fell off. And then we're now forcing younger people to stay in school or education until they're 18. And the ones that do know they want to go into trade, or they want an apprenticeship, or let's say they know they're less academic, they're going into an apprenticeship that they haven't even got a business attached to it. So in Scotland, you cannot start an apprenticeship. You cannot join an apprenticeship, no matter where the college is, no matter what the system is that's providing it. You cannot join unless you've got a job, a business that's going to back your apprenticeship. In England, come over here, we need the head count on a college, done, you come in. So there's loads of people leaving that haven't even got a business to go to. So they've not had the practical experience of the apprenticeship. And even the ones that are getting it, some of them aren't lasting because they're not getting enough days in the actual practical side. It used to be the apprenticeship system was like 4 days on the job, 1 day in college. It's like flipped almost. And then so you've got this rung, there's some mad stat that like something like 60% of apprenticeships at the minute in trade aren't ending up in trade by the time they're finished. And you've got young people in colleges who are doing 3 days in a college, and then the 2 days they should be somewhere, they're not. They're at home, or they're working in spoons, or like it's just madness.
How do you change that one aspect then? So, how do you incentivise people that do have a business to take on apprentices? Because otherwise, I feel like you need more people at the school giving you the choice of vocational. And if people were trained whilst at school, they could potentially leave at 16, go straight into a trade, and they've already had that experience. But how do you then incentivise businesses that, a single one-man band or one lady on her own to take on an apprentice and actually fund that, because it's costing them time and money to give them that experience?
There are incentives already, but I don't know whether that's enough.
No one understands how to do it, do they? That's what
I don't think people realise it's available either.
Yeah, you've got that, and also, I think there was some ridiculous stat that it was something like 70% of their time spent in the first year was sort of not chargeable. So
Right.
you've got to take on that responsibility of having this person paying them, and 70% of their time is not worth anything to them as a business. So, in the first year, and then obviously as it goes on, it gets better. But with the pressure of one, business, and two, the fact that people need to keep their business afloat, and they, and then put the time and energy into it, they haven't got the time.
A lot of people I still think if I put an apprentice through, they're just going to leave me anyway. So I feel like there's that disconnect as well on the end game.
I think as well though, I was an apprentice and I was working for a one-man band for a long time.
What did you study?
I was electric.
Sparky.
Say it like that. Sparky. Forgot what it was then. And I worked with a one-man band, and he was strict. He was real tough on me. Everything that I did was like never good enough, and you need to do it this way.
That's another thing I think is you come straight out. Your teachers have told you you're not amounting to anything. Then if you do get somebody that is a bit of a
tyrant when they're managing,
not saying obviously who you worked with was nasty in any way, because they taught you a bit of discipline, but you do get some that go and really beat someone down, and then that starts with the. Oh, I don't want to, it's cold, it's wet, I'm not going to go into work today. Because that's another thing is the weather here. Who wants to go and get up on a roof in the middle of winter?
No one, especially when you can sit in your room making TikToks all day.
Yeah.
But no, I'm grateful for him now, because it did teach me discipline. It taught me a lot of stuff. But, he would just be like constantly, You need to do it better. You need to do it better. I'm trying to think where I was going with that now.
There is a line to that though, I think, because there is almost an older mentality, which for some reasons it's great. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you to get it right. But I do believe personally that a lot of people took it too far, and that's had a negative effect. It's put people off wanting to work on site. They've seen or heard how harsh people can be, how critical they can be.
Well, some people have an apprentice, but then don't actually teach them anything, and they're just sweeping up all the time.
I remember where I was going with it. Now.
Making
It was more a case of like, he was teaching me lots. He was teaching me about the way that things work, etc., etc. And then I moved to another company, and the other company were great again. But lads at college, they were just getting put from person to person to person, and they weren't actually getting taught anything either. So you start. It probably almost feels like the apprenticeship levies are geared up towards the bigger companies, but actually it's the one-man bands and the small companies that need that extra support more, because they're the ones that actually are teaching people. I'm not suggesting that everybody working for a big company doesn't teach somebody, but at the same time, the level of interaction I got, or the level of teaching I got on my first set of apprenticeships was really good. But then I spoke to lots of lads at the college that were like, yeah, I'm with such and such this week. Oh, and I like working with him because he does teach me a little bit. And then next week is with somebody else. But
imagine, though, if you are getting passed around, you're not really learning anything. Eventually, when you do want to go and start, because you've passed your apprenticeship period, you're going to go to a job and somebody's then going to say, well, he's crap because he hasn't.
Yeah.
And then you're back in that cycle again of, well,
That's
I'm
where
not
people drop out, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, I'm not starting again. I'm not going through all that again. I thought I'd done enough. And the levy's an interesting one for me, because I think the SMEs, like you say, the long tail is where we need people to be getting on board with it. So back to your point, how do you solve it? I think there's two things that need to happen. Well, there's fucking shitloads of stuff. But, I'm sorry.
You can swear.
You swore now. It's too late.
Well, I've listened to it and I was just like, but there's two major challenges in my opinion, and it's one, the perception of working in the industry, and then the second part is that long tail of SMEs actually taking people on. I just don't think we've done the research on it. They don't understand it, and we're dealing with, on the whole, a group of people that we already know learn in a different way and don't really like the academic side of anything. But then the process of getting access to that levy is painful, and so people look at it and go, I ain't doing that. I don't know how to do it.
No tradie wants to do any paperwork.
They don't want to do that. So then you're in this position where the levy is all about, the bigger you are, the more you put in, but the more you can get back out. Well, all the big contractors, all your tier ones and all that, they've got teams of people every year working on how they get their money back out the levy. Okay, they put the most in, but they're net. The net at the end of the year, they'll almost guarantee it. They might put 2 million quid in, but they'll get 2 million quid back out of it. Whereas the SMEs don't know how to do it, but they're the ones we really need to do it. And the perception side for me is it needs
well, if they got taught that at school vocationally, just how to learn the trade, but then the business side of things, and then how to take somebody on, how to budget, finance, and monetize what your skill that you
exactly got. That. If we proactively I actually don't think it's too difficult through the schooling system to proactively pick out people who aren't going to be going down the academic route. Right. So at that point, like you said, if there was a different lane that they could go down to still get some kind of qualification, whatever it is, I don't know what that is, but then they can start learning this stuff.
But then do schools, because obviously there's league tables, isn't there, with schools? A school's going to think, well, actually, I'm not on a league table here because I'm offering. How would that be assessed as to whether or not?
Maybe those tables need changing themselves.
Yeah, I think
maybe that needs splitting up so you are getting incentivised and rewarded.
I know a lot of schools. It's
a per head funding thing. Yeah.
How many can we get in each class because they need the funding? But then how many get?
It's run like a business.
GCSEs.
Just run like a business.
Yeah, they're funded in a way. Like the better the grades, the more funding. Unless it's really bad, and then they get more funding as well because it's just a bit of if you sit in the middle, you're no good in the middle. So yeah, it is that. But if they could, if a government, it was deemed that going to university isn't the be all end all. And that's where
there should be trade universities.
But this is where for me it comes back against the whole industry being positioned like the army did. Do you remember when the army had that full on. I'm on about
be
like
the best.
Yeah, but it was for a good decade. You know, you forget how long it was that how much money got pumped into the media side of changing the perception of what it was to be in the army, and like I feel like the industry needs that. It needs to be put into a better position.
But does it need?
failing
Does it
people.
need? Say if there was like a trade university, does it need brands like yours to get actively involved with the universities doing?
It would absolutely have to, in my opinion.
We do stuff like that already as a business. You know, we've got a guy that goes around chatting to colleges and supporting them. They've got to do so many hours of off-job experience, so that's getting to understand the industry. And we've got someone full-time that goes around doing that, pretty much every day. So he's at a different location, he's giving different things away, educating them in different ways.
Squidgy balls.
Squidgy balls. No, actually, we sort of put some stock that we can't sell into there.
Well, even giving them equipment, colleges to actually practice doing certain things on. And the good thing is if that you are doing that at the colleges, they're getting used to using your product as well. It's another thing that I'd never get with brands not thinking. Like Apple, they always do back to school promos.
Yeah. Discounted for universities, etc.
I'll get a free set of AirPods when you buy the computer.
Yeah.
It's a clever way of getting people used to using it, because once they start using it, they've got so used to doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element of that, but, also as a part of a bigger plan, it's more a case of, well, we've got the brand awareness as well, not just that people using our products, but there's also the fact that the college will keep them repeat business and stuff off the back of that. But the education piece around it, where we're talking about new technologies, whether that's smart, whether that's a new consumer unit, or anything that's like that, it all helps them because they're not exposed to that. When I did my apprenticeship, there was like 1 or 2 brands, and that was it. And you didn't really get exposed to anything else. So it's part of a bigger plan than just.
I mean, even the wholesalers, getting them involved with colleges. I mean, I'm surprised they haven't gone down that route, because saying, well, look, here's your discount, a bit like a student discount type thing to.
Because we know as well, trades are unknowingly loyal. Like half the time don't know why they buy the products they buy and where and why they're shopping there. Like, you ask loads of trades, why have you got a juicing account over a Travis Perkins? It's because my gaffer used to. I took his account over. Yeah. Why'd you buy DeWalt? My man bought DeWalt, or my gaffer got. That was the first brand I got given. First like combi I had, whatever. It's that, isn't it? See, you're right. It's the capture age is when they're going into the trade, not when they're 10 years into it, not when they're setting their own business up. They've already dealt with all that stuff then.
How do you get wholesalers, brands, colleges, universities, schooling to all sort of tie up and mirror? Because it's like you said, there's like a couple of bits that you've got to do, but it needs to be start with school. You're not academic. Would you like to learn a trade? But if you can't find teachers at college to teach, how are you going to teach at schools? And then does it mean that you've got to have more equipment at schools and more teachers at schools to teach?
I mean, the college thing is interesting because I went and seen there's a massive plant company just in Tamworth where they got one of their head office, Flannery. They're huge, and they've ended up building their own. They got boot camp, So they've employed an ex-head teacher because they got to the point where, could you imagine plant?
Couldn't find anyway.
Well, yeah, you got like one or 2 colleges that do a plant course, and even then they can't afford the plant. Yeah, like it's just too expensive. It's huge. So they might get one, and then they're like, "Oh, can only do a certain ticket on it," and then I'm done. So Flannery were like, "Well, we've got all the gear, we've got a bit of land. Let's just like build a school essentially and do it that way." And they've got some like interactive like small like diggers inside with the sort of like screens on and stuff that you can do certain bits on, and then they chuck them through this thing, and they got boot camp funding from the government and said like, look, we're going to put 350 through as a trial. Once we've done that, we want more, and they did it, and I think they've got another round for like 1,000 or something now. But their mantra is, I think this is where it's different, is that they know they're not going to keep these people. They're going to go and work for someone else, but they're like, it doesn't matter. We're not bothered. What we're bothered about is the long term of the industry, because we know at some point they'll probably come back round and work for us. But unless we start getting people in, so they've took it as a responsibility there, which I think is incredible. But you ain't like, I think on different trades, you're not gonna get that sort of. Plant and infrastructure is a little bit different. You've kind of got like 5 or 6 absolute monsters, and then everyone sort of sits underneath them. So I can kind of see why they've done it, and that they know no one else is going to do it.
But it's been different, isn't it, to
Yeah, and I think it's the funding across the different trades, because like plant, unless they do something, no one's going to do it. The affordability of it all is not there. But like bricklaying is a perfect one for me, because there's loads of bricklaying courses and there's loads of colleges that do bricklaying, but there's still loads of people out of work and not. Bricklaying is one of the biggest shortages we've got, and I'm like, it doesn't.
Which is the biggest one? I see you've done a bit of research.
Bricklaying's up there. Bricklaying's one of the highest, because the average age of bricklayers down in like the southeast is getting into like the 50s, and it's a hard job. Like you don't do it until your hands fall off when you're 60. It's so at that point you go, well, how can there be loads of colleges offering one trade with apprenticeships and then it be one of the highest trades that's still crying out for people, and from an earning perspective it's but that's why it's a good in an earning perspective, because it's a shortage. It's a mad.
It's funny you mentioned that, because one thing I always found was the transparency of trades. It was never talked about until you're in it. So when you're in college or school or even a labourer on site, you actually don't know what skilled people on that site are earning. And I think if you did, that would probably be even more incentive for you to get into that.
There is a lot of secrecy around that sort of side of things, but I feel like that's where colleges should be all the finance stuff, even how much you should be able to potentially earn or what you should be going into, and not sort of, like you go to university and you study and you come out, everybody thinks they're going to be on like 100 grand a year, don't they?
Yeah.
And then you get a rude awakening and you're like 13 grand like I was, and you think. But if people were saying that stuff at college, because the other side of it is like companies don't want to tell people what their pay structure is either, do they? Because they don't want that being okay, I know they pay £20 per brick to lay, I'm going to pay you 21. So then they end up losing. There's a bit of that as well going on, I think, within industry.
I mean, things like JRB and that was set up for that exact reason, to stop people from doing that, where you go £20 and I'll pay you £21. They wanted to try and sort of hold that together. Yes, they're there for the employee at the same time with all the rights and what have you, but they're just so far out of touch.
I feel like, say bricklaying, for example, you got big house builders. I feel like gangs of bricklayers should be going across all the different, not just for Persimmon or whatever it is. They should be doing it for... And then bricklayers together bring up their trade, if that makes any sense. You can go on any site and they all go.
I see so many people complaining about, or putting a job at pricing it on, whether it's social media, just saying, "Oh, I've got this job. Where would people price it?" And they all come out. And it's like
I've seen those posts and people go 200 quid, and then somebody's like 850, and they're like, "You're wrong."
Yeah.
And then they go back at them and say, "Well, you're the reason why the trade's falling, and you're the reason why we're not getting paid what we should be getting paid."
That comes back to what you say: is people don't.
They don't talk about it. No, it's almost like a mentality. Don't talk about money.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's an element of it where people don't understand, and they don't realise that actually that's what someone's prepared to earn, or they are happy with that as a wage as well. So that does them as they've got a family. That will do me as a family. I don't need to go to this extreme as where, yes, I know everyone's in business to make money, but at the same time, people sort of get a little bit greedy, maybe.
I think it's something that, and it's a really good example on the plant side. It's one of the things they spoke about, because they were like, an 18-year-old can come here and after like 12 weeks, they can be on 35 bags a year. They don't know it, and that's for like your sort of general ticket. You go out, you'll be able to start doing like decent-ish infrastructure jobs. You're not going to set the world on fire, but it allows you to then get in and then learn from and build from there, and then look at the tickets you can get.
If you're 18 and you're earning...
Mate, if I was 18 and 35 grand, I'd be like off my head. Like,
you'd be in the club with the 2 bottles of champagne.
You'd have no money left, but like you'd be earning it at least. Do you know what I mean? And I think I completely agree. I don't think people understand what the earning potentials are. And it kind of goes back to that thing for me around like this. I think the big job that the industry's got to do, and I say the industry because I just don't think anyone's going to do it for us. And it should be, without shitting on them, but I suppose I'm going to shit on them. But like CITB should be doing more around every trade, every college, the earning potentials, how you get into it, how they support SMEs. That levy is run by them, and it should be driven by them. And I think Tim Bulk and the guys took over there. I think he's doing a better job now than previous years. But they've got so much to do.
Because I know, obviously, my idea that I've just had, because I know industry, nobody seems to want to do it, but obviously with your brand, like On The Tools, is there anything where you could have it as a resource so that people it's almost like they can educate themselves about how
yeah.
much they could earn, or these are the jobs that you can go at, and actually get brands and companies to advertise via you, saying, well, I've got 2 apprentice places, or some way of connecting people.
I think this is where we're heading. I was having this conversation with someone yesterday. I think this is where we're heading as a brand, and I think it's been partly purposeful and like everything in the whole
You
time
fall
I've been
into
running
it,
on the source, it's partly accidental, you know.
Yeah.
But I think by having this focus on like the brand and the mission and being like, well, okay, what are we actually doing? And to tell you where it was driven from, I went to do a talk and I got absolutely nailed on it. I felt like a politician. It was bizarre. Someone asked me to go, and I think it was like about 5 years ago.
Where was
in
it?
London.
London.
It was like a UK. It wasn't UK Construction Week. It was another one. It was at a college. It was really big. I got down there and it was like a free beer, and it was sound of like go and tell the story. They just said, come and tell the story and show some videos and that. So I had some funny videos from On The Tools that got in there. There's about 400 people, and then at the end there was a Q&A. And I got absolutely battered about just like, why is there no diversity in the industry? Why is mental health so bad? Why is there so many suicides? Why is there no women working in the industry? And I was like batting off these answers, and I like, it was about 20 minutes, and I left.
The thing is, how are you supposed to know?
Well, yeah, and so I got back on the train, and I was fully pissed off. Like, I remember being like, fucking, I went down there, I didn't get paid for it.
They don't like Brummies in London.
Yeah, like, I was really pissed off about it, and I rang Ad on the way back and all that. And then the next morning, I remember we sat, it was in Paisley actually, what we were talking about earlier on, and we had like a big long table that we called Hogwarts on there, that was the only table we could afford. And he got me a coffee ready when I got in, and I sat down and I was like, you're right. He was like, I think they're right. And I was like, you mad? And he was like, no, I think they're right. He said, like, ultimately we've built this community, and what are we doing about it? What are we doing?
You don't understand
what are we doing for them? Name me something we do for them other than like entertain them and put brands in front of them. What are we doing?
Some good videos though.
Yeah, great videos. But like, and we sat there the whole day like talking about it, and
Is that why you started doing the white papers and stuff like that?
yes, everything switched then. We was like, okay, well, we got to like think a bit bigger and like look at where the brand's going. And I think we've ended up being that. The conversation I've been having over the last 12 months with both internally and externally in the business is like, why is there not, no, I don't want to caveat this, I don't want to become a union. But it's a bit mad, isn't it, that this industry, based on what it is, doesn't have one.
You're going to be the Len McCluskey of...
Yeah, right. No, look, I think unions are like...
Who's that one on the trains?
On the rails. I can't remember his name.
Do you know the one I mean?
He's an absolute legend. I love him. Like
and they always try and go for him on an interview. He just bats him up.
And I think unions can be like really problematic. I think they stand for the right reasons, but I think they can just turn into things that are just a bit mad. Yeah. So I'm not suggesting it would become a union, but it's that mentality of going, well, actually... Who's doing it for the boots on the ground? Who's actually like...
I feel like it needs to be a resource for people.
Yeah.
Because like you say, nobody's talking about it. But if you're getting, like a brand like me to sort of open up about what we do, or, the types of things that we've done, or what you guys are doing, or what bricklayers are doing, or, bricklayers having events, what's that? Is it Super Trowel?
I mean, and
stuff like that. But then it's all in one place, one resource for somebody to...
And it goes back to that thing of like, we've had the, and again, it's bloody accidental, but we've had that tagline for years of connecting construction, and always been on about like that it's to do with recruitment initially, because that was the initial like drunken idea. But actually it's sort of come full circle, because I'm like, yeah, that's the ethos in the business. It's just like we've managed to get most of the boots on the ground in the industry in one spot, and then we've managed to sort of build out loads of relationships across the industry, and now it's like, well, if we plug them together, I reckon the industry will just be a little bit better, because it is pretty fragmented. It is all in parts, and everyone's, like you say, hiding this bit, and we'll tell you that, but we won't tell you this. And I think actually the more we can just bring everyone together, the better chance we've got of solving some of these things. But I think a central resource for I don't know if it's for recruitment or if it's for...
I think it should be for a bit of both. So you get to because you guys have got industry news, but if it was specific bricklayers, because I don't know whether you've got that, but specific for bricklayers, then events for bricklayers, and so bricklayers come on, and then you do it for sparkies, for plumbers,
and everything's carved out.
Everything goes like that. You build those relationships at that higher level, and then you connect people.
Do you chat to people like Volterman and people like that?
No.
But even like it's
E-Fix or people like that.
But like it's installer like show
yes.
soon. Like I feel like if you guys were partnering maybe with some of these shows, and then we bring everybody together. I know, like some shows, be like, oh, piss off, I've got my own social media people.
Well, no, it's interesting because we've been talking about the shows around like, what's our purpose in being there? Because we always get offered to be there on like a, you know, speaking openly about commercial deals now, but it's a shit, you know, of like, come here, promote the show, we'll give you some free space, and we're always like, why are we there?
Yeah,
why are we there?
it, yeah.
You know, and actually, it's now got this. We're in this world where, like, for UK Construction Week in Birmingham, we're going to have something big there, and it's all based around, again, it's nothing to do commercially. It's just a CSR thing. It's just all around a suicide prevention thing that we want to do in September, and like, so I think I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, I'm more and more passionate about trying to solve some of our three things: are skill shortage, tool theft, suicide, and for the next 3 to 5 years we're just not moving off them because I don't think they're going anywhere, and we want to make it
big things though,
big things, and I think I do think it's our responsibility, even though I was like kicking off about that train journey. I actually do think I've come round to the fact that I do think it's our responsibility to do it. And I think the other thing is, I just think no one else is going to fucking do it. Like, I don't think anyone's going to represent the boots on the ground and go, you know what, if you don't know how to do fill out a levy for an apprenticeship, we'll show you, this is how we'll do it. Like,
well, I actually think that if you solve one of them, it has a knock-on effect. So skills shortage, obviously people aren't burnt out, then there's maybe less people committing suicide, there's less stigma around you've got into a trade because you're thick, you know, like it has a knock-on on the other two things that you were talking about.
I do think the school funding is a really key part of it though, because I just don't. I think from a top down there, I just don't think I don't think they're rewarded as a school or a college for construction in generally. I just don't think it's on the government, even though the house buildings, like with kind of houses.
Well, they talk
houses,
about.
And I'm like, well, how does it?
Yeah. Well, they talk about building 350,000 new homes.
Yeah.
They haven't got the people to build the homes, so it doesn't matter how much money you chuck at it.
Planning's one thing. I know they're on about sorting planning, but then the other part is like, who's doing it then? So there's a load I think that the industry can do, but I do think there's a top down gap, and I'm not clever enough to work it out.
I mean, you guys must go around the country and go to different places to talk to people. I mean, what feedback do you get on people people moaning that, you know, that they've got too much work, or people moaning they haven't got enough work, or they can't find apprentices?
Again, it depends on where they are in the country. It seems like everybody just goes London, just straight into London, and then there's loads of work there. But it start broadening it out a little bit, and people are like, well, I'm okay, I'm not too bad. I could be busier, and then you get other people saying, well, no, I'm flat out. Like, I'm turning people away. I'm upping my prices. And
I mean, I'd love to see, because, like, get a UK map and actually see where these trade-related colleges are, because you might see that there's a big concentration here, but actually you need skilled trades down there. And again, if you could say to people, I know obviously you live up here and you trained up here, but you can't find a plumber or a spark down there. Why don't you go to where some work?
But I think the businesses have got to be attached to, because years ago you'd have like there was a whole industry.
But if you had people that were looking connected on your
this is it. You've got to do that. I think the rule around having people on an apprenticeship without an employer, I think is madness. I just think it breaks.
I'm talking from Sparky point of view. I'm sure that they only can get up to sort of level 2 or level 3,
they have to
but they can't do their MVQ unless they've got an employer. So they can't actually get their gold card from that.
But that's another thing. If you can't get somebody to take you on, you've just got stuck there. You're in purgatory, aren't you? Limbo land.
I think that's where the awareness of the employers needs to come in. There is help there. It might not be enough at this point, but there is help there. We need to educate people. We need to educate employers how you can actually apply for those grants, make things easier. And you've also then got that resource of having that apprentice on site to help you.
But when you go back and you look at it from a school leaver, or just before they leave school, what are they doing to market that person? Because there's a piece around that as well, isn't there?
Well, even at 16, some kids I find leave school and don't even know how to like put themselves forward for a job role. Like how to even lay out a CV, or like where do I go to find these?
We've done that at colleges as well. We've explained to them, do a talk and say, well, this is what you need to do. You need to go to your local wholesaler. You need to go door knocking. Simple things like that. They don't think to. Well, they don't have the skills to be able to go and approach someone and knock on the door and say, I see your van outside. Who are you working for? Or is it your business? Is there any chance for an opportunity? You know, all of that skill just seems to be lost.
Those personal skills have diminished, unfortunately.
Social media, that.
I was going to say that, but I didn't want to sound like the old man.
No, it is so, isn't it? Like we have it a lot in. I'm sure we'll all see this across our businesses, but like the young. I'm so old now. This is killing me. But the younger, the younger generation now, like that are coming through into the sort of working, but they don't want to even pick up a phone.
They can talk
about having
they can
phone,
talk.
just a phone call. Do you mean, like you walk around with these and I don't think they actually realise you can.
They talk on a
people.
headset, chatting on the Xbox.
Yeah.
They can't talk
Everything's
on
done through like written communication, and I think that it's to that point there, you lose the skill of like you think of now. Like, I mean, I've got a 13-year-old daughter, and she's just on Snap all the time.
Ladies and gents, just a quick one to say a huge thank you to our new headline sponsor, CT1, the best sealants on the market, voted for by the British public. Not only that, it's made in Britain as well. So go and support a product and a brand that is made in the UK. But I just want to say to you, they've got a brand new product out, which is the BT1. It's a combination sealant and adhesive like the popular CT1, but it's perfect for keeping a hygienic environment. And it's designed to completely stop the growth of bacteria, microbes, and fungus. And not only that, this stuff is strong. Now, it's going to be available at Travis Perkins, Wickes, Jewson's, and pretty much everywhere else, so there's no excuse not to go and give it a go. So we're really happy to be partnering with CT1.
Do you know when I knew that I was old was when I'd said to somebody, I said, "Oh, I'll get your number, I'll give you a call," and they went, "Just add me on Snapchat."
Yeah. You were like,
and I was like, "You can just give me your number, and I can contact you on whatever."
Yeah.
Just add me on Snapchat. I was like, I don't even.
But even like day to day now, though, I respond much quicker to people that are trying to get hold of me quickly through text. But
if you had to, you'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. I think there's so many young people coming through now that they literally don't have this confidence to communicate verbally, like face to face.
Where do you think that skill come from? Because if you think back to school, I know we didn't have social media and that, but
I mean,
where do you think you
used to get
that?
terrified doing like a presentation in front of everybody, like my heart like that. But I used to get forced at school. It was like, you need to stand up now and explain what you've.
You know what I think it is as well. I remember the days of like, I mean, I really do sound old now, but like, you know, I was a kid before mobile phones come out. So like, if I needed to like see where one of my mates was, I'd
bringing their house phone.
I'd bring their house phone, and
blowing up the pager.
Yeah, I'd ring their house phone, and if they didn't answer, I'd go round and knock on the door. I'm gonna go knock on, like, and I know it sounds like a stupid skill, but from a very young age, you'd have to knock on a door and speak to someone's parents and be like, "Oh yeah," and not be like rude. I think subconsciously, for years and years and years, I've learned how to then just communicate with someone who's an authority figure or someone like they ain't it like that. My daughter has not walked around to anyone's house to knock on and see if anyone's there. Like that is not what they do. So like I don't know. I just think there is a gap there, and that's a shame because I think, like you say, like seeing a van and being like, I'm gonna walk. That would take quite a special, different type of young person to go like, I'm gonna do that.
You know, running a business, if you had somebody's mom ring the buzzer and say, "Have you got a little job for Johnny?" You'd be
they
like,
ain't getting the job. End of. That's it. You know, I would never ever employ someone who's gonna buy second hand. Yeah.
You'll have to cut that.
But it is an interesting thing, isn't it? So I think there's kind of loads of challenges with it. But
I think that has a knock-on effect to the people employing, because people like, say, our age and above, you want someone to make an impression on you. You might get CVs, emails, you just be scrolling past, someone actually coming up to you, making eye contact, asking you, is there anything available? Could I just come and help you on site? Or I've got an MVQ, I've got this apprentice that I need to... It makes all the difference. It makes someone memorable.
But again, having that skill to be able to say, look, or make a deal, even for a start, making a deal is a big part of it, isn't it? You talk about wages or working for free. 9 times out of 10, you go and approach someone like that and says, "I'll give you X amount of money." You don't ever get an opportunity, even in businesses today, with jobs that we're all in. It's very much a case of you don't get an opportunity to sit there and argue what you want. It's very much with this, we'll advertise that, and that's what we're going to pay you. But being able to do that from the outset of working for 2 years for free. That's a long time.
But the opportunities people get from that. We've had people on our show who have gone on to work in Tokyo Olympics, have travelled the world, they've worked on some incredible sites and had some incredible life experiences from that. They've gone into work in like the BBC and places like that. And that's just from taking that decision to be like, okay, I'm going to go through a trade.
But this is another thing from doing the podcast is there's that many other places you can go and actually work with the trade. Yeah, okay, you've got different regs and you've got to maybe slightly retrain. But I feel like that's never drilled into you at school, is it? To say, look, you're an electrician, you can go and work anywhere in the world. There's electric everywhere. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like if that was sort of pushed and drilled into you, like you've got that skill, and then you can work anywhere. Like some of those places you've just mentioned are like, imagine sticking that on your CV. Oh, I've worked here, or I've worked there.
Yeah, fantastic. I think people are told you'll go into a building site and that'll be it. You'll be grubby for the rest of your life. That's not the case at all. You go onto a building site now, especially. But yeah, it's cleaner than my house half the time. The amount of regs and rules, and it's a much nicer environment. It's a much more professional environment. Granted, there's going to be good and bad, but it has come a long way, and I don't think people realise exactly how far it's come. You meet some incredibly intelligent people in the trades, costing up buildings, specking up all the engineering stuff. I mean, the amount of regs that Jake can rule off, I think it's sad, but I mean, it's good.
Wax lyrical on it.
Do you think it is a funding problem, or do you actually think it's just because I'm just thinking like straight away then, who's in school who even knows this?
It's part funding, part education, and then part having somebody take the whole thing by the scruff and putting it all into place. All those stages that we've talked about. So your school, you're splitting off. Maybe you go to college and then you fully qualify, and then your apprenticeship has started really from school. And then by the time you come out of college, you should be, knowing what you're doing. And then like you say, you're educating people how to get funding to take on an apprentice and stuff like that. Just need somebody to.
I mean, I just keep going back to STEM in my head. Sitting there the whole time I've sat here, I've literally said about STEM, but I get asked quite regularly to be a STEM ambassador for schools and bits and bobs like that. But every time I look at it, I just think it just seems a bit complicated.
Nothing ever seems to get done, does it?
No.
Like you get all these.
You go in and you do a little bit, and then it's kind of, well, that's it. It just doesn't ever seem to. There's no. They always ask for fun and interactive things to be done, and that's partly on me, but to find something to do with that. But at the same time, it's like, is that making much of a difference? Because
but not everything is fun, though, is it? At the same time.
No. Well,
you think it's just more like box ticking? They've had someone in.
I feel like that sometimes with.
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. Well, not so much box ticking, but it's just. We don't really know what we're doing, so that, like, I feel like we've done something, or we've attempted to do it, and we can show that we've attempted to do it, rather than being like, well, what's the actual impact of what we've done there? It's a bit like social media. You can have content, but if you're just tossing stuff out and it's got nothing,
no substance,
then people. Do you know what I mean? And it's the same with that. If you send you in, you're going to be thinking, well, what do I do after this now? What was the point of me being there?
That goes back to what you were saying about the brands or the companies then supporting it from that side. Do we then need to run some sort of program where, yes, we go in as a STEM ambassador, I'll put that in inverted commas, but then off the back of that, we as a business would look at it and go, well, how do we then support that? Do we then go back and check it on how many people have actually gone through an apprenticeship, or do we then try and find them placement, work with them? But
to be fair to us, it is partly on us, because if we don't have people coming through trades, we don't have customers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There'll be loads of like 80-year-olds. Oh, I'll buy another uni light. We need people coming through as well to continue with our business.
That's not just a you problem. That's people making bricks, people making tools, people selling lights and sockets. That's everyone.
I mean, I noticed like this sort of subject more with the likes of stonemasons, thatch roofers. The thatch roofer guy.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get people to? Because you can't even get like stonemasons. I think there's only 3 colleges in the whole country now.
What I would say is that I do think this is where the positive side of social really lends itself, is because there's so many trade creators now. and it seems to be more and more every week, up to the point where it's actually like, if you're not filming the work you're doing, you're obviously shit.
Are you even a
are you
trader?
even a trade if you're not filming? Like, it's really scaling quite quickly. We have like a big tracker on how many there are and the new ones we're finding, and you're like, wow, there's like dum 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 dum. But like, there's some, obviously stonemasons, like some of the content they create is incredible. It's like really far, like wide reaching and pretty sexy.
Therapeutic.
And so then I do think that actually, if you are that way inclined and you're like, I definitely know I don't want to be down the academic route and I want to be more vocational, more hands, whatever, that those types of what you would deem as like a full-on old school, these people, there's obviously only going to be 4 of them in the country, might take a bit of a resurgence and go, well, actually, I want to do that. I want to be that geezer. I can't remember what his name, geezer with his top off.
I know the one you mean. What's his
Charlie.
name? Charlie
Gay. He kills it. Like, his content's amazing, and he's all over the world. He's in Cyprus doing these like mad, what look like Roman Empire builds, and like. So I do think it's really inspirational. I think that does support young people coming in. I think the problem is like, where do the signposting for it is just
Abysmal.
Yeah, it really is.
So this is one question for you, because you might know. Is there even a syllabus that's standardised for, say, bricklaying across all the colleges?
They're very similar, aren't they?
They're similar.
They'll have a framework to work to, but then they'll do their own thing.
Because you've got that for maths, but you've got to learn this, or English literature or whatever. You've got to learn this. Like, is there something that's...
There is, yeah, but I think, like you say, it can be sort of...
woolly.
Yeah.
And is it written by people that are actually in the trade for the skills that they want?
Most of the... It's very rare you'll find in the colleges, from an apprenticeship perspective, where you've got people who are just absolutely nothing or have not had much experience with it. You tend to find that, I know a load of people who do it in colleges, and they're all like either still jobbing trades or they're like 50. And
because I've had a few carpenters who've said, well, we got taught this certain technique, and it was stuff that was being done on houses 20 years ago.
There's definitely an element of that, because they talk about ballasts and stuff in lights and transformers, and we're on LEDs now, we're on drivers, but or they talk about the old colours that used to be there, and now we've moved on to the same colours as the continent, but you do still need an element of that. You can't just take that away.
Well, if you do go in somewhere and they've still got
then you need to know. You look at it and you go, well, I can see what they've done there. I learned that back at college. God, that was a long time ago, but I know what I'm roughly looking at.
I can't remember what I did at college.
Drank a lot, I know that.
Because I think those training providers in the middle, their job is to find people to go to college or through their own specific courses they run, but mainly to go into college. They're like kind of recruiters, but not. Have they disappeared, or like, do we need more of that? This whole like use case of there's a load of kids in college and 50% of them haven't got an employer. But who's connecting the gap there?
I think schools should be like feeders into that college for the vocational stuff. So it should be, if people were learning it, like, I don't know, GCSE years, you were going more sort of you're still doing a couple of your subjects, but you were more heavily on the vocational side. So if, say, you're a Sparky, okay, we're still going to get you to do maths, we're still going to get you to maybe do physics or something else, and you learn those subjects alongside that skill, and then you get fed into like a trade college or something like that. So you've still got some.
I was at school, but I think the places per year was like 5.
Right.
So if you actually wanted to go and do it, only 5 of you could, and in a population where every class is overspilling by 30 people, 35 kids in one class, you've got probably 6 or 7 groups of that year in one year. So you're talking like 150 people, and you've got 5.
Well, if you look at it, because this is the thing that angers me, is you have got that many subjects now that you can go to uni and physically learn. Like, there are some wild subjects where you just go, didn't even realise that was a
Didn't someone say there was... I remember reading something, there was a degree on like Taylor Swift or something. I swear to God, I mean, what the fuck? How can that happen?
But you look at that stuff, and then you think, well, actually, when you go to like trade college, there's like some of them are only doing 5 or 6 different trades, and there's like probably 50, 60, 70, even 100 different trades that you could do. And I feel like maybe if they reduced some of them at major unis and started putting stuff into the vocational side of things, you could do a really good job of training people.
I think also as well the
you know,
just
the
talking-
HS2 college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You guys are going to laugh about. I haven't been there, but I thought, you know, trying to teach people and train them.
It's only half built.
Yeah.
But to be honest,
But
be ready in 10 years.
Yeah.
But again, that sort of like we laugh about that, but that's a good idea. But again, not executed right.
Yeah. I mean,
with projects like that, it's not like, oh, it'll be done in 18 months. That might be going on 10, 15, 20 years. There's a lot of time there to teach people certain skills on the job.
and there's enough funding that's been
Oh, yeah, there's plenty going on that.
put elsewhere. I'm having the back. So I had my nephew come and do work experience with us a couple of weeks ago. My sister's like, because he's adamant. He's already made the decision that he wants to go on an apprenticeship because he doesn't like school, and he's like, I want to, like, when I get to end of year 11, I want to go and do an apprenticeship. He doesn't know what he wants to do in. He just doesn't. He knows he doesn't want to stay in school, and I feel for him because I'm like, so that one of the hard things because I just kept in education because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just kept failing until the point I got to uni, and then I got kicked out of the uni, and because I just stopped going. So
But even when you go to uni, how do you decide? Like I just said, there's thousands of courses. Oh, Taylor Swift.
well, that's what I did. I did law for 6 weeks, and I don't know how I
can
got
imagine
into
you
it,
in court.
mate. And it was land law, and I got into the 6 week, and I was just like,
Excuse me, Your Honour.
I'm gonna like, my head's gonna just fall off. I don't know what's going on. Then I went and did sociology.
Just meant the public services,
Yeah, this is it. And then I think I did media for about 6 months, and then I was like, they were making me watch like Hitchcock films, and then I was just like, I don't know what is going on. And then they just sent me a letter being like, listen, you don't turn up and you've failed everything, you need to leave. I was like, fine. But like, I think it's amazing that my nephew's gone like, I know what I want to do, as in like, but he's been forced to stay in school unless he can find an apprenticeship. And he's like saying the same things to me around like, what do I need? Like, I ain't gonna do algebra again.
Pythagoras theorem.
Do you know what I mean? And he's 14. He's 14, and he's a really smart lad, and he's already catching on to the things where he's like, well, I know I ain't going to use this, so why have I got to spend time doing it? But then equally, he's not getting the guidance from the apprenticeship point of view where he knows what he's even going to need. Do they even know what they're going to need?
I, mean,
Like,
I still think you've got to get like at least some of your GCSEs, but I feel like if you are being an electrician, what stuff do you actually use when you're in that
They tried
job
to
role?
do that with the options, didn't they? So you go into 10 and 11, and they try and give you the options to try and steer you into which.
Just need
path
to
you
do RE and art, so you get
Yeah,
a couple
there
of
you
decent
go.
grades.
Yeah. But
got an A star in drama. I actually did, but you know, it's
But that's why you do. Sometimes though, that's why you do them, isn't it? Just to get a decent grade. Isn't it? You're never going to use it again, but
like, yeah, just saying about algebra or you know anything like that. If you're being a Sparky, to do your qualification, and you need that stuff. You need all that theory behind it, but they're not told that. I was pretty decent at maths and never tried.
I'd never be a spark.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? But I don't think people aren't being told any of this because again, construction's not seen as a vocation that people should choose to go into. It's just like a world where people fall in and then they grow and they get great careers.
But then
like, no one talks about it.
You look at some of the business people that are doing successful at business. Most of them didn't go to any college or anything like that, did they? They're just winging it, and then all of a sudden it just clicks, and they go, "Well, I know what I'm good at now."
They took the risks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel even more sorry for young people than I used to, in the sense of like from a school leaving age, because I just think there'll be a big bunch of them that are lost every time they get to the end of the GCSEs, and they're just like, okay, I'm not meant to be anywhere.
Well, imagine the ones that got the GCSEs in COVID and then had to go to uni and can't actually go and meet anybody.
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to, you know, like you say, get that interaction as well with people where you can even ask a question?
It almost feels like there's an industry that's missing. So there's such a big skill shortage, and then there is funding about. We know it's there. The levy is there, and it's actually like if you can get hold of it and do it in the right way, and you can kind of like it works. But it feels like there's like no one in the middle, like an actual industry going. Okay, look, we're going to find young people. We're going to put them into college, but we're not just going to do that. We're going to also find them an employer, match them, and we'll take some of the funding. Now, that's what I thought training providers did, but
They
They just draw down on the qualification.
Lee, you might become a government think tank, mate.
imagine.
You say that.
I don't want anything to do with it.
never know.
But it feels like that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, well, what? That's obviously it sounds really easy when you say it like that. But
Do you remember I'm sure it was called an access course at college.
yeah,
So that's what feels like it's missing. So you do that access course, and then you can go and do your apprenticeship. So
well, what currently happens then? So you said then they skin off the. What did you mean by that? Then the training providers don't they? Isn't that what they're meant to be doing? Aren't they meant to be connecting employers with young people that are doing an apprenticeship?
The other thing as well is I find is some people go, I want to do a trade, and they just go, well, electricians earn the most, so then they go and try and be a spark, hate it, but actually they might love being a plumber, and there's no way of just even trying things. That's why I say take it back to the school thing, and you're learning a little bit of plumbing, a little bit of being a carpenter.
That's what the
how do you know what you actually like?
That's what the T levels have been designed for, is to give everybody a broad overview of construction, and then from there they can pick and choose which one they think's the right one for them.
I mean, imagine going to school and then like one of your lessons is actually you've got to build a house together with everybody on the course, like on a little patch of land to the side of the school, and you've got to build an actual house. And then each year, obviously they knock it down, and the next year comes in and builds it again.
Yeah, you just.
I
get
think
a
that
little,
has come
little
into
drip
play.
of-
I think a long time ago they did test things like that. I remember at our school there were certain things where they'd be like, okay, right, you guys are going to go lay a block patio path up to the tennis courts or something like that. See if that's what. But I think it wasn't centralised. It was per school. So
Yeah.
you've not got that
Well, we had what
follow-up process.
are you from Tamworth as well?
No.
No. So, me and Ben are from Tamworth, and like Torque High School was turned into vocational college for a while, but then it shut down. I think it was doing bricklaying and a couple of other courses, but and for a good couple of years it sort of survived, and then it just died.
They pulled the funding for it.
Well, and this is the thing you
All
wonder,
comes down
don't you?
to money.
Yeah. And like Tamworth, really, if you look at that, it's one of the oldest like mining. I think it was one of the last towns to lose its like working mine, and like.
Well, you imagine actually if you've got people on these courses for 4 years, like the schools are crumbling.
Yeah.
So to pass your course for the 4 years, but supervised by obviously your teachers, have to go and build like classrooms, or you have to imagine you've got people there actually theoretically. I know, shouldn't say it, but people are building that stuff, learning, and then they're getting the free building for the cost of material.
Yeah.
Something similar to that where they can actually go and get that on-site experience.
I know CITB did stuff local to their head office I think it's over in Norwich. I think where they were doing like quite a few sort of thing. I don't know if it was a sort of scale as that, but like similar to what you were just saying there. But again, it's like it's in Norwich, and it's like it's one place. It's like a per school thing or a per college thing, and it's like there's nothing that's sort of. There's no framework like you're on about over the bricklayers. There's no framework that gives people the opportunity to test like what I might like. Like you saying that people just go, which is definitely a thing. I'm going to see who earns the most amount of money, and I'll go and do that. But like that doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it. And like let's face it, if you don't enjoy what you do, you ain't doing it for very long. That's just a fact. And that's something you only learn, unfortunately, as you get a bit older. And But it's so true that you can't stick at stuff if you just don't like it, no matter what it's paying you. So. There is something around that, like how do you allow people to have a bit of time to sort of just have a dabble, But
Like I said, them T levels are pretty much designed to do that, but it's a whole year worth of learning about different trades and doing different bits.
and does everyone provide those T levels in terms of like
Not everyone at the moment. Most people have started to switch over to it, but
all at college level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether it's college or whether that's a private training provider, they're all starting to switch over to this T level, and then they'll develop it on from there. But again, how well that works, whether we can take the hit on the additional year that's needed to put them through that T level part, and then develop them onto the actual courses.
That's the other bit as well. I feel like sometimes to get qualified takes too long as well. So you got people where maybe they haven't got the support to do 4 years as an apprentice.
I think
they need to get it done in 2 so they can actually start earning some money. Do you know what I mean? Not everybody's got a safety net. Parents to fund them to go to college and stuff like that. So
I think that's where that transparency comes back in, because you've got to make people aware that, okay, if you're an apprentice, you might not be earning great for a couple of years, and then after that, you might not be on as much as your mate who's in a warehouse. But give it time, you're going to be on significantly more.
Yeah,
You've got to look at the long game, and people need to be aware of that. So many people will drop off, and that's the same for academics. They might drop out of what they've chosen to do at university. Sociology, Taylor Swift. You could have been a Taylor Swift.
Well, you know what's
imagine
embarrassing
you
about
and a
sociology
Taylor
thing is,
Swift.
at A levels, I took sociology at A levels and I got a U, right? And then I blagged my way into a unit on the phone that day, and got law at Derby, and then 6 weeks later switched on to sociology. I got to backdoor it, so I got into university to try and get a degree in sociology of something that I got a U in A levels. I mean, how broken is that? How ridiculous is that?
But that is the thing, though, isn't it? It is broken. That system is broken.
I think the lecturers as well. That's an issue. We've come across some brilliant lecturers. We've got one, like Jake says, working with us now. Who's been brilliant. Two, yeah. But I have come across students, apprentices, who have said, "Oh, it's only 6 months in this year, and I've already had 3 different lecturers," and they need that guidance. They need those role models to keep them in education, to keep them focused. But unfortunately, it's not consistent.
That's probably another thing, is getting people that are potentially retiring to just do even a couple of years just to help.
But the shortages and the pressures that are on them, why would you? If you're sort of thinking about packing up and calling it a day at work and retiring, why would you? There's too much pressure on them.
It's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because I think there's someone made the point earlier around it was you, and it's about people saying like, I'm being taught old stuff because the lecturers, been doing it. He's been out of the trade so long, they're just teaching old stuff. It would be great because I know a few people who are doing it who are still, still brickies, for example, and like every day they're on site, and then once or twice a week they're in a college. Now they've obviously done that because they're really passionate. You ain't doing that to earn money. You're doing that because you're passionate about the industry and bringing young people on. And it's like, maybe there's a piece on like trying to really at a scale trying to find that, because they will exist. We will have this industry. What I would say about it, as much as it's like, we're focusing on like there's a load of problems with it, but like the people in it are like from a camaraderie, kindness, like dropping things to get things done, like better than any industry I've ever worked in, ever by a country mile as well. And so you will find those people. Because that consistency of having someone, you always remember, like I remember the 1 or 2 really good teachers I had at school, they were teachers that I had throughout the years, not ones that like came in and out. Do you know what I mean? It's because you end up building a relationship, and we know that like in this industry, it's half the job. Like you've got to get on with the gaffer, or you got to look up to them, you got to like be inspired by them or respect them at least, whatever it might be. But there's got to be something there. It can't be like, you can't have someone new every 2 months. It doesn't work. So there's definitely something about trying to find people that are willing to give up that period, time as well.
You mentioned people get to a certain age and the body can't keep up. If they then had a viable alternative, okay, we're going to pay you this amount to come and teach. I feel like that should
even if it was just because I think part of the problem about earnings as well is that a lot of the courses now through apprenticeships, they've become like way more like college led. Rather, like old school, when I was leaving school, the apprenticeships were like you were out on site 4 days a week, and you're in college 1, like max. So it meant you earn a bit more money, and then the pressure on the college was, quicker. And you get the experience quicker, all of those things. And I know there's like, don't get me wrong, in certain, Sparky, there's a theory side you have to have, and so I think there's certain trades where it kind of works, where there's a bit more of a sway, but that would then lower the pressure in terms of who you need to find. If it's only 1 day a week, in order from a lecturer perspective, it just feels like that practical side of like getting on and doing it. There's a mad thing, isn't there? Because people can't leave school until they're 18, but there's some big sites you're not allowed on until you're 18. So you might be in a certain trade where really you're only going to be, if you're a shop fitter or something, right? If you're doing fit outs and you can't get onto a commercial site, what are you doing? What are you doing at college? Okay, you can learn bits of it, but you're not. Where's that? How the hell does that work? So there's
Well, that's another thing. You don't get told that, do you?
Well,
you
no,
can't go,
but
you
that's
can't
only
go do certain jobs until you're certain.
That's only a recent, because we've forced this whole thing around keeping young people in until they're 18, I don't think construction's been thought of when that come in. I think it was just like, let's get on with doing that because we can get them into universities more because that's where the money is. Yeah. I think there's a breakage somewhere. Shit, isn't it?
So what's the answer? I love that. He started off by going, it's fucked.
Can't be,
and then you're like, oh, shit.
It's so frustrating.
There's just too many moving pieces to deal with, and we can sit here until girls come home, but we can.
You know what it makes me want to do? It makes me want to like literally just pedal.
I thought you were going
bang, like pedal the phones and like literally find an employer, find a college, and then match someone and be like, right, one down, and just show someone that this is how it can work.
I feel like with what you've got now, with that community of trades, men and women, is you are the gel that binds us. But you are that focal point in the middle where you can connect. Like people are willing to talk to you. Colleges are. Brands are willing to talk to you. You have that.
Do you know Apprentice 1-to-1?
No.
Mark Allison. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Have a chat with him. He's a really good guy. He literally wants to do the same thing. He's been doing it for a couple of years now. He's been tying up people with
you
apprentices.
imagine you say to the colleges, say, look, you tell me what you offer.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can then say to apprentices, look, you come on, you can find these courses, and then you get the employers to say, okay, we will put our details on there. You're matching these people, helping the colleges. Then the brands are like, okay, you could say, these want people to go.
Start a pack.
I also think that you've got to do a little bit more than that, though. I think you've also got to take.
Don't give him too much.
No. I mean,
He's only one
that's
guy.
the point, but it wouldn't be long before it'd fall down. And the reason I say that is because you would get inundated with people saying, I want an apprenticeship, take them to the right people, and then the right people will go, no good. Because they haven't got the personal skills to get them.
I mean,
you're essentially becoming a recruitment agency for apprenticeships. Is the reality of it. Is what you're trying to do there.
I wouldn't say you are, because it's up to that person then. You are just, because even some...
You're just a gateway.
Even some apprentices don't even know like who's looking in the area, because people don't advertise it. Yeah. And then somebody will just go, oh yeah, actually, I'm looking for an apprentice.
It's not even that. Honestly, you chat to someone and they'll be like, yeah, I'll take someone. I've got enough work to do it. I'm not actually looking for one, and I wouldn't do it off my own back. But if you sort of find me someone,
that's
I'd
where,
do it. Yeah,
that's where,
but then if you can, when you do that, you've got the personal skills to be able to get them to have a conversation with a customer or something like that. They're probably told not to talk to customers, but at the same time, if they can have a conversation with them, just that little piece around there might then make that a successful partnership between the two of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult. It's going to be.
Just give you a new business model.
I've come away with a job.
What? Lead the Messiah. Lead us, Lee.
Oh god.
But no, have a chat with Mark Allison, because he does the same thing. Apprentice 1-to-1.
Do an intro for me afterwards. I thought at some point anyway. Is that all right?
I've seen Mark's stuff. He does a lot for apprentices.
Yeah, all off his own back. He's done it really well. Helped a lot of people out.
Are you wasting time? I think that some of you probably are, and I have a solution for you. Nobody wants to do any type of admin. Now, I have a solution for you, and it is called Tradify. It's a fully automated job scheduling, invoicing, and quoting all in one place. Now, that software is going to save you 12 hours a week, and all by using a simple software solution. Now, you can try it for 2 weeks, absolutely free, no cards needed, and you'll even get support in person from Tradify themselves. Now, when you're done, you can always come back to me and thank me, but just enjoy the extra 12 hours that you're going to gain from just using the software.
How do you think this could be taken higher up, though? Because you do hear about
send him to Parliament again.
Well, whether you're talking about
Marking is bigger than me.
Whether you're talking about home builders or hospitals or medical, there's a lot of government arms now that as they're just like, okay, we can't deal with it. You do it. We'll just supply you a bit of money.
I feel like the industry itself needs to lead where it wants to go. So I feel like
you've got to go knock that door yourself.
If you have somebody who's got that community already that can pair people together to get stuff done, and then the community goes to somebody like government and says, this is what needs to change.
There is a lot.
And then the government gives the funding, but then the industry then needs to take the funding back and go, well, how best do we do this?
There's lots of that in the electrical world. Lots of that. You've got people like Tess who do fantastic work for apprentices on the actual qualification side, but then you've got electrical safety round tables. There's lots of people that get involved with all of that. But again,
nothing. I'm not taking anything away from anybody, but I feel like there's a lot gets of people get involved, but nothing gets done.
I was literally just about to end with that. It's like the players that are on that are just too big. They don't see it from
A micro.
from a micro or from an employer's point of view. It's very much a case of, well, we'll set the rules and we'll make them work for us.
You know, like with your platform, you could put surveys out to tradespeople. So it goes out, get ambassadors, influencers, people to push it on their thing and actually ask and get literally feedback straight from the people that need an apprentice or, you know, would look to use a service that you guys can add, and you stick that out across social.
Which is what we did, I guess, through the skills shortage campaign we've done. Is exactly that. I guess it's what next now, isn't it? Because I actually to your question there around what, you know, how does it need sort of higher ups? I think it does, but let's face it. Like really, nothing's gonna. I don't think funding will get driven into the construction industry until it affects like the big
players.
corporates. Because so if you look at, like, for example, if you look at the city, right, and you go, okay, in London now, if Deloitte suddenly were in a world where they couldn't get something built, and it got back to them that it was like, if we've just got like your project's delayed by 2 years, or we can't get you to. One of the big things that's happening in this at the minute is around net zero, right? So there's a lot of work going into trying to find out whether that can happen, right, and how it can happen. And the skill shortage just come up in that conversation. There's like a task group working on it at the minute, right? So I actually think the only funding that will come is from private. I think what will happen is it'll be like a corporate responsibility where it ends up being you top your FTSE 500s, the institutionalised money that we sort of like try and grab a hold of.
But then that stays within that corporate sector, doesn't it? It doesn't feed down.
But I think it would fund the industry into because if the problem case came and it was resource and it was like, right, we've got to get more people into the industry, that will happen if the city needs things building. Because as much as it's like we need homes, like, do the government really? Does everyone really give a shit about that people haven't got enough homes? I don't think they do.
But banks would, because they've got mortgages. Without homes getting, obviously they don't want too many getting built because obviously, you know,
Too much supply.
Too much supply. But then at the same time, if homes don't get built in the future and there aren't more people coming into having mortgages, it affects the banks, and that's the city.
Are they short-sighted though? Are they just not seeing that?
I wonder whether they know the connect.
Because my other thing is, if it affects the city, sometimes the city just picks themselves up and goes, well, we'll move to Frankfurt.
Yeah.
Or we'll move to Paris. Do you know what I mean? If it's that type of building that they want, whereas if it's homes for the actual banks to lend out money.
But do you think the current state of skills, we could build more homes than we are building already?
Do I think the current state? I think there's twofold. Yeah, so there's a skills gap and there's a skills shortage.
I think that the homes thing at the moment, though, because of the rate of interest, they don't want to build because people aren't buying them.
I completely agree with this. Right, so I know sites. Right, I know sites in the east where there's gangs of people ready. They're on site ready, and the site it's been shut. Like big Persimmon one, example, and just stopped. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
You can always tell when something's happening, though, because you know, like you drive past commercial units, it's to let, and then you hear people like Persimmon, whole gangs.
It's exactly that, because if they're not, you know how like, the house building market works in a way where it's like you make your margin in that last like 7-8% at that scale, big ones, maybe even less. So then, if they're not selling, but you've still got a quota and you're still building, like. From a pure commercial business point of view, it's absolute madness. Why am I building more houses that are definitely not going to sell? So they stop.
I'd love to know how many new homes they've got where they haven't got buyers for.
Oh, but it's horrendous. I know a property developer who's part of our business, and he was saying that it was they've got like a couple of plots left over in a really nice area in Stratford, and he rang their estate agent they use, and this was like. It's like March, I think, and they were like, "It's like the week of Christmas. Like we are just
dead,
so dead. It's scary. Like there was just no one." And I think that has a.
But then
So
that
I
has
think
a-
part
that
of
has-
it's
has an
commercial.
impact on trades.
It has an impact on the trade in a different way, where it's like we think the big problem is one of them is skill shortage, and then you go actually,
Well, if
maybe
that-
it's not. Maybe it's just people not wanting to spend money.
But if the
Like,
housing market then tanks, people that are coming out as apprentices, they're not ever going to get jobs for the next few years because people will go, "Oh, I'm not taking anyone on. Times are tough. I've got to cut back."
it is scandalous though by those like by those tier ones and the clients, I guess. Like they're paid to build those. They win those tenders on building the houses and getting the plots gone, regardless of if they sell or not. And like the fact they're allowed to just be like, "Oh, we're gonna down tools for a bit." There probably needs to be something done there, but I definitely think that the knowledge gap of going up to sort of government or like where the money is being funded, which, you know, let's face it, is like funds of money that probably isn't even from this country, or funds that are managed here. I don't know whether there's a disconnect in the information that's being fed to them, i.e. that there's a skill shortage and we need more people in it, so let's promote the industry, otherwise in 10 years we're all fucked. Or whether they just don't give a shit and they're just like, we know the problem, but like we'll do it at our own rate, and actually
I
we're
feel
quite
like
fine with it.
They know what the problem is, but they've got no solution.
Without going too political, most governments, you could agree, aren't very good at managing things they don't know about. Trades, for example, so they're happy to be like, okay, you guys deal with that. We'll just fund you. So, how do we get to that level where we are knocking on their door, being like, okay, we've got a plan in place. We want manufacturers, we want colleges, schools to all come together for the greater good that if we don't get people in this industry, you're not going to be able to sell your products. You're not going to be able to sell your courses. It's all going to have that knock-on effect. So what can we do? How can we incentivize it? How can we regulate it? That's the conversation I think that needs to come from the top down, because then maybe that's putting more money to your lecturers who are going to stick with colleges, who are going to stick with their students. Maybe you can get something into schools where you are having try these out days where you've got, you know, try your different trades.
Or even if the schools, if they can't put it in at the school, send them to the college.
That's what I used to do
Yeah.
at mine when they did the vocational courses. They send them off-site to another little college around the corner.
And then kids are actually getting used to having that level of autonomy themselves
Yeah,
for when
yeah.
they go to college. Because another thing is like school, it's like, no, you're not allowed to leave the school gate. And then all of a sudden you go to college, you're like, I can go anywhere for my lunch. Really? Like,
Go the cheaper.
it's true though, isn't it?
Yeah. I think because it's a mad thing as well, really. There's no like representation at government. So like there's no minister of construction or like trade. It's I don't even know where I don't know where the decisions are even incorporated from a.
I mean, you had like housing minister, which was Gove, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then housing is just like one. It's like
not
carving
really-
off.
yeah, it's
Do you know
not
what I
really-
mean? It's like one element, and I think the decisions are made from it from a different perspective. Not. Do you know what I mean? It's like it needs that.
What they try to do is they devolve that power back to local councils.
Yeah.
And again, no disrespect to local councils like planning officers and stuff like that. They've got a tough job, but how would they know about building, I don't know, a hospital, for example? Like the site gets like identified, but then I believe it sort of goes then to the NHS to figure out how to build it, and then they have to put it out to tender, and there's not anybody really taking control of one aspect of it.
No one owns it. No one owns
So when it goes wrong, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
In the electrical world, though, you have people like Electrical Safety First, you have NIC, EIC, or Searchsure, you have NAPIT. People like that, they will be lobbying for electricians. But
But they're all trade bodies that are then just, you know,
And
again,
ECA.
they're all part of another thing that sits above them, you know, like a trust mark or a, do you know what I mean? So that,
Chaz or something.
yeah, I mean,
Safe
what the
construction.
industry, I think it's got something like 220 plus trade bodies, you know, which is mental in
Quangos, yeah.
itself, you know, having that, it's like that's crap. And then above that, there's nothing. There's nothing that's sort of like,
Well, the IET were sending out a survey a little while ago, actually, talking about making it a license to trade and being an electrician as a license to trade. So if you haven't got the license, you can't practice.
And that's what
essentially.
they do in the States, especially, don't they?
But
it seems like other countries have got it in a better
I don't know.
shape.
Some haven't though.
Yeah,
But
like,
it's even like stuff like a mechanic. You can pick up some tools, go and start a shop and actually say, I work on cars. There's actually no...
Same for an electrician as well.
Yeah.
Nothing, and most bricklaying and all that. But it's just...
It goes back to, like them 10-week courses and you can say you're a gas engineer.
yeah.
It's just how do you then police that? Where's the person that's standing up in the room and going, we're going to police that, we're going to make sure that we do that without any commercial gain to it?
Non-profit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, there's commercial gain anywhere there.
Non-profit, but...
It's over to one man, mate.
No, I do.
Leader,
No way. The apprenticeship thing.
do it now. It's on
The
camera.
apprenticeship thing I'm into.
You and Ad can go out with absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
That were absolutely shocking.
But the only thing I'd say, there is always money to be made though in between. You know, if you've got to regulate something, you can make money doing it. Like it's just.
I feel like there's too many of those trade bodies. It's like when we have to get products tested, like SGS, Intertech, there's all these bodies
Decro
that
and people like that.
it's a Stasi.
And
if they
and
find
you have to
one,
get them all. You have to get it off all of them.
you can go through an individual one, but say like for an example, we're doing ATEX products, rechargeable. Now I've been doing these products for probably 5.5 years, but every time you submit it, they'll go, oh, that's not right, and you go, well, can you give me some guidance on it? Well, just change this. Then you resubmit it, and then because they've told you to change that one bit or that needs adjusting, something else isn't quite right.
Or either that, or they go down the clauses and they failed on that clause, and you go, right, okay, I'll fix that, and then they go a bit further down and go, well, actually, it's failed on that. Why didn't you tell me that in the first?
Every time you resubmit,
It's more.
and that's why I find all these organisations and these bodies actually, it's a bit like like boxing. You've got the WBC, the WBA, the WBO.
Yeah,
Get rid of them all. Just have one, and that's it. Simply, like every time somebody else gets involved in business, don't get me wrong, it's good to have a few because they can pick up something. They can pick up something that somebody else hasn't, so it improves the industry. But you've got too many. What's the point in them all?
Yeah. Do you think there should be a couple in each, almost in each trade,
On the tools standards,
mate?
Yeah,
your rap sheet.
I am nowhere near smart enough to even get anywhere near any of that.
Your rap sheet's growing.
I wouldn't get anywhere near it.
Ad's going to hate you when you get back.
But someone else can deal with that when I'm gone.
But I said right at the beginning, you can't. And that's the very reason why you can't, because no one can agree on something because it doesn't suit their one, it doesn't suit their business, and two, nobody can agree on what it actually looks like or who's going to pay for it. Because somebody needs to be paid at the end of the day, but no one's prepared to do it.
I do think the apprenticeship bit and the skill shortage can be solved to a certain extent, where we get more people joining and they are positioned better with an employer and a college. I think that can happen. But beyond that, how they sort of stay in, how it's regulated, like that. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's too many people involved currently that it would affect, and therefore then that almost control that segment of the industry that would go, fucking, we're not doing that.
Turkeys don't vote for Christmas, do they?
Exactly that. Exactly that. And although the industry did vote 80% Brexit, so put that out there. So yeah, I do think that's a challenge.
Was it 80%? Was it?
That's what we tracked it at. We did loads of it when Brexit was coming up. We were doing like surveys every week for like months.
And now Danny Madden's got Nigel's here.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and like it was track, and we were like, this is like turkeys voting for Christmas. You know, people, this industry will get affected big by this, and probably first. And obviously, like we had loads of people leave the industry, and it has impacted us.
I think you are right. It's difficult to get everyone to agree and to make all these changes to get everything regulated. But from a individual point of view, there are responsibilities you can take. You can think, okay, I'm a part of this industry. Change starts with me. What can I do better? Can I bring on an apprentice? Can I teach? Can I go into college once my back's knackered from laying bricks or working in lofts? What can I do? And I think when people start, and they do, don't get me wrong, they do, because there are some dedicated tradespeople out there doing this. But what else can we do to get that message across that it starts with us?
There's your next campaign. What can I do?
Yeah.
Thanks,
boys.
got enough to do now.
Thanks, boys. Sorted for next day. But what we have, part of that first campaign was about building that week, that skill shortage week. So we've trademarked that now, so we can just go back to it because we know it's not going anywhere. So you're right. It's like, well, what's the next point to it? I do think there's I I think once something starts, so if we can move the needle on something, so if we can go, look, we're starting to get more young people in, but this is the problem. This is now the problem, and if we don't solve it, whereas because I think at the minute the problem is so
big.
Yeah, it's so big. Everyone's just like, well, what then? I don't know what. And there's so many different problems. Whereas if we can just move the needle on one of them and go, okay, well,
even if it was like 5%, for example, you changed it 5%. That's a big improvement on being at zero, I suppose.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We just keep chipping away at it. But how long have we got realistically before we are too short?
So you know, when you did your initial findings, did you survey like current apprentices to find out what they because if you get that, then you get the viewpoint from the colleges, and then you get the viewpoint from employers.
There's a massive, one of the bits that came out is there's a huge disconnect between the college employers that are just not that is not going on, which I find just mad. But I don't think the colleges have got it as a responsibility to make sure that someone has an employer. They've just got a responsibility to find someone and put them on a course. That's the way it's funded. So there's a big disconnect there, which is one of the big things.
But surely wouldn't it be more beneficial from the college to say, well, 80% of the people we train go on to paid employment?
But it depends.
Use that as your slogan.
But do they?
Maybe they just get the funding anyway.
That's what I mean. I don't know how it. I think
you got MVQ assessors as well. They're just so inundated with the amount of work that they have to do is that they're not personable anymore. You know, you got someone coming around. I think I had two when I was doing mine. They had a lady that was coming around checking on like welfare and all that sort of stuff. Then you had someone actually assessing your work. But from what I hear now, it's just a free for all. It's just so inundated with work.
Your rap sheet is massive, mate.
I think that the problem will get worse, and then it will start affecting brand. It will start affecting the core parts of the industry, and people will. And I think maybe more funding will come from like the sort of commercial part of the, not the trade bodies, but the brands, the merchants, the retailers, where they're like, shit,
if
we're
you
not
look at
selling
that
anything until.
As a circle, though, it's been happening for years. That, you know, you think about the trains, think about the hospitals and the way that they're going. You know, it's just the whole cycle of everything that's happening within this country to a degree. Isn't it?
I suppose they get privatised, right? So you look at like the NHS
but then they still need people to look after the maintenance and build these hospitals.
But the money doesn't flow from the government; it flows from the privatisation of it. Doesn't it? That's what I'm trying to say. Is that, well, what your idea was that actually people like ourselves and commercial people will go, we need to put money into that, and all of a sudden, before you know it, it's privatised.
But that's what, like, look,
we're getting deep now.
Yeah, really deep now. Like, we would talk about
we don't know anything. We literally don't know anything.
My brain
just
cannot
speculate.
cope with any of this. But we were talking
It's
about
like
the
the
NHS
YouTube
earlier,
rabbit hole, isn't
but it's like
it's the end of the world.
Yeah. You know, in America, the flip side to private healthcare versus NHS, we don't know how good we've got it, but it's broken.
Here's one for you, Lee.
Yeah.
Did the aliens build the pyramids?
Yeah, well, listen, we can talk about that for a while as well. But like the people think there's poverty here. The private healthcare system in America has like caused more deaths than most wars. Like it's such a huge problem, and that's what's going to end up happening is that the people who can afford it will be sound and it will be a better service, but there'll be people dying in this country just purely down to like not being able to get a GP. Like and
it's already happening.
Yeah, and so then the privatisation of construction. I mean, is it not? I think it's partly there anyway. Like, I do. I think the governing bodies that I think there's some good governing bodies in certain sectors, and I think I look at some of the ones that are funded partly from government. I'm like, I don't know what you do.
Surely they'll still come up against the same obstacle though, trying to find people.
Yeah,
doesn't matter if how it's funded.
We've
if
gone
the
round
people
the
aren't there.
Lee's got back to your answer. It's fucked.
See you later.
We could have ended this podcast after a minute.
No, I do think we can get more young people in. I think the industry needs to be put on a better pedestal than it is. I think that too many of the negative connotations of the industry are driven.
Like you said, if you just improve it 10, 15%, then
the old stigmas are driven.
Thing,
and I think if we can do a really good job of that and connect people from an employer to college point of view, which even if it's have to be done manually at a really low scale just to prove a model, I think there's some change that can happen.
Yeah.
So what's the final gist then from everybody? What's the
Mine would be, if you are thinking of getting into it, do it, don't give up, see it through, because the opportunities that are open to you are massive. The money, the earning opportunity that are open to you are massive. The potential for you to be your own boss, your own business, that's all there.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is as well is it's one job that can't really be replaced by AI. You know, if you want to be an influencer online, you know, I can go on ChatGPT and write whole comments and pictures. You can do pictures and stuff now. You don't even need to actually go and take a picture.
And it's so far off. You know, you look at like the sort of the robotics that you've got around bricklaying and house building, and you've got, you know, you've got almost got like the spray concrete, you know.
Yeah.
But they're like commercially and at scale, they are so far off. AI is creeping up at a pace that's scaring the life out of me in other industries, but in this industry, it's not.
Imagine trying to get one of them on one of the building sites in England. No chance. It can't come on. It's not got ivers.
Doesn't work in the brain.
One of those things, trying to do a retrofit. You know? Do you know what I mean? It's like the old housing stock just doesn't allow for it, and then, you know. So I think there's like you're absolutely right. We're not getting caught. Okay, parts of the industry might, so like, you know, your QSing and your architecture and think like some of that maybe
tarmacking for highways or something like that. They might have machines that come in and.
But even then they're going to need, again, it's just it's a skills gap. Then it's a skills change. So I agree with you. I think that the opportunity for people is not. It's not presented well enough, and sticking at it, getting in there and going, you know what, I might not be earning now, but I tell you what, in 5 years' time, I'm gonna be like leapfrogging ahead of people. If that's what your gig is, then I think it's there. I really do.
Yeah, don't sacrifice those long-term goals for short-term gains. You might see your friends earning decent enough money, doing something where there's no real growth in
Well,
that.
nobody is when they come out of uni. They're crying in debt, aren't they? And
But they're going to be earning more than what you might. If you're an apprentice and your mate's earning a decent whack in a warehouse and all you want to do is go out and drink or whatever, then you might be tempted to think, oh, you know, I could just jack it in and go be earning that amount. But just think about the long run. You're going to be earning twice, triple, if not more than what they're on. And your earning potential is fairly unlimited.
My final point would be about what can you do more for the employers to support the industry, making sure that people are coming in, take that risk. Hopefully, on the tools, we'll do something great with the levy and help people understand how to draw it down and really just don't be afraid of it. I think that's pretty much the way I would go with it. Make sure that you are taking on one at least once a year. If you can do it, great. If you can't, then try and help someone else, I suppose.
So I feel like if there is a new government, whoever gets the education minister role, is that it needs to be sort of, okay then.
Literally had a board meeting this morning and spoke about this exact thing around Labour getting in, because that's where I think it's going. Not that I'm trying to sway the vote or anything like that, but and going, right, because already, like Richard Parker who got in at Brum, new mayor, Labour, and I met him about 3 or 4 weeks before. Went to this, like, got invited by a mate to go to this thing. It was a bit mad, and I didn't know whether he was going to get in or not, because Andy Street is he's a bit of a PR wizard, but he did, and I'm like already going, okay, well, that's an in Brum. We've got to go and follow that bit up. You know, they're speaking about apprenticeships pretty well. You
could even do government first and then go to Metro Mayors, so like Andy Burnham in Manchester and some of these others, and actually then try and try to take it from there and say, can we get you on board? Because I know Andy Burnham and Andy Street were trying to do, when HS2 got cancelled, you know, the links to there, trying to do something private there.
Yeah.
And even trying to get those guys involved.
It feels like that's the level where you could ignite some
change,
some kind of change, even if it's not, I don't know, not necessarily like a full change of curriculum.
Even if you just got a commitment from them of some description.
Yeah, you'd be lucky.
But it's a backing, isn't it, of some form? Going like we believe in it. It's raising the profile of the problem. That's part of the, that's what lobbying is, isn't it? Like that's what it is really. You're just marketeering a problem. You find a problem and turn it into
a government think tank, and you lobby.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the House of Lords, mate.
Mate. Oh no! Imagine me going there.
You and Ad
you in sociology.
Never say never, though.
No. Listen, I am up for whatever
A
change we
rise.
can make.
Sir Lee.
Yeah, I don't know about becoming a politician.
Sir Lee
anyway,
of
but
construction.
I think yeah, but I think it's kind of what needed. The strategy is you've got to go at different levels, right? I think you've got to go like, well, what can we do ourselves? All of us, not just me, all of us.
Shirking responsibility.
No, I'm not. I'm into this apprentice thing,
It is
honestly.
true.
Yeah,
Even,
yeah,
if,
yeah.
even
You know,
if we just do little bits, then that amounts to.
and then what's the strategy at government or like you say, like sort of city level or that sort of influence level? What can we do with the governing bodies and the CITBs of the world and go, okay, well, like looking, we fed back to CITB a lot around the process of the levy. Like, you just got to make it easier. It shouldn't be that difficult. It just shouldn't.
Right, you should be able to do it on your phone as well.
Yeah.
Just boom, 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 done.
Yeah. So I think there is a sort of connecting job to do there. But look, I'm up for it. If you task me with it, I'll go and fucking sort it.
He'll go back and go, Ad, I need you to do that.
Yeah.
Mark, you can do this.
Yeah.
He's just delegates.
No, look, I honestly do believe it is part of our responsibility to solve it. I genuinely believe that as a brand and as what we've ended up building and representing. I do believe On The Tools has got a role to play, a big role, not just like I will do a little bit. I do think we've got a responsibility of trying to solve part of the problem, and I'm up for it. So,
Well, thank you very much, guys.
That's all right.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So it's all to play for now.
Yeah, there you go.
No doom and gloom, no negativity, no going out saying it's done.
No, but you got your caption for your video. And
They'll be like, I can't believe you said that. You killed the conversation. That can be a real though, but it's like, how do you think we can solve it? It's fucked.
Done. 7 second rip
It
before
is
well.
7
I'll love that.
Everyone will be like, is that it? No, thank you very much for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.